Hello everyone, I'm Yuji Hye and welcome to In the Newsroom, where we bring you the behind-the-scenes look on how we deliver the news to you. The second week of October has been another eventful one, from the ongoing presidential campaign to nationwide celebrations of Hangul Day, which is observed every year to commemorate and appreciate the invention of the Korean alphabet by King Sejong the Great back in the 15th century. With that being said, let's go over to our reporters for their candid account on what they're up to throughout this week in the newsroom. Hyunkyung, it's so good to see you again. How long has it been?
I think the last time we saw each other in the office was in August, I think right after I got back from Japan.
It's been months then.
Yeah, it was the 15th of August for our Independence
you have
Day.
a great memory there. Right, so how have you been?
It's been hectic. As always, but I haven't seen our junior reporters for a long time, except
they're
for
supposed
those.
to be here in about
I don't know where they are, but
there they are. Hey, how's it going? Remember Hyunkyung? Since you're in a morning shift.
Yeah, the early night shift person, right? I only get to see maybe one of you, each of you, every once in a month, maybe. But it's so good to see you guys here.
Yeah, I hope we can see you more often.
Oh, yeah, I wish so too. But at this time of the hour, I'm always sleeping.
Yeah, well, it's so good to have you here. I mean, since everyone's here, let's get started. I mean, how was your week, everyone?
Pretty busy because there were several cultural events going on, and one of the events was, of course, the Hangul Day, which is the most important day for Koreans.
Yeah, it wasn't a public holiday, but yeah, like you said, it was a very meaningful event for everyone here in the nation.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I went to the official ceremony by the Korean government to celebrate this 566th anniversary of the day. And it was such an honor for me to be able to attend the ceremony. And right after the ceremony, I went to the Gyeongbok Palace, and there was this Sujong Pavilion, which used to be a Jipyeonjeon, where the King Sejong the Great, who invented this Korean alphabet about 500 years ago, used to research and invented the Korean alphabet. And it was such an honor for me to be able to do the stand-up in front of that building. Of course, the building was burned down like hundreds of years ago, but then at the same place, another pavilion was built, and there's this special exhibition on Hangul was going on throughout this week.
Throughout this week, just to mark this occasion.
Yes.
And I hear that other events were taking place in Seoul as well.
Yes, I went out to Yonsei University on the same day, Hangul Day, to do a story on a writing contest.
Kristen Smith, a 36-year-old teacher from the United States, came to Korea a year and a half ago to learn Korean. Ms. Smith was at Yonsei University on Tuesday to participate in the university's annual Korean language writing contest, which commemorates the 566th anniversary of the creation of Hangul, the Korean alphabet. Over 1,700 foreign nationals and overseas Koreans participated in the event, where they showcased their Korean language skills by writing poems or essays.
How was the attendance? Because it was on the weekday, wasn't it?
It was on Tuesday. It was held in outdoor theaters, and the weather was pretty nice. So over 1,700 students from 72 countries.
1,700?
1,700.
Oh, okay.
So the theater was packed with students, and not only from neighboring Asian countries like China or Japan, but from countries like Nigeria or Germany, the countries that we don't really expect people to learn Korean language. So it was an exciting day for me. 이제 장원 끝나고 네, 그러니까 세종학당. Over 1,700 foreign nationals and overseas Koreans language skills by writing poems or essays.
For them to actually take part in this writing contest, they must have a good command of Korean. So you must have gotten to talk to them. How was their Korean? I mean,
Some of them, some of their Korean language was very fluent. So I talked to this lady from the United States. She used to teach social science in the United States, and now she is learning Korean language because she's very interested in the Korean society, especially the relations between the two Koreas. So she was very fluent. So I get some good sound bites from her.
한국어를 왜 배우고 있는지, 그리고 이제 마지막으로는 한국어의 그 아름다움이라는.
첫 번째 질문할게요. 한국에는 언제 뭐 하러 왔어요?
저는 한국에 온 지 1년 반쯤 됐어요. 네, 한국말 해외어도 바꾸게 왔어요.
그러니까 한국어의 뭐 특징이나 아름다움에 대해서 한국말로
그래서 한국말의 특징은 첫 번째는 한글이에요. 한글은 너무 훌륭한 글다고 생각하고 세종대왕은 좀 훌륭한 사람 있는 것 같아요.
네, 이 정도면 될 것 같아요. 그 영어 답변 좋았어요.
So, like, which countries or the participants came from? The other countries won the event.
Oh, a student from Nigeria actually won the top prize, and I was expecting her to speak fluent Korean because she got the top prize. But then, ironically, she only started learning Korean 6 months ago.
Fast learner.
She still got the top prize. So I got a soundbite from her. But although her Korean was not so fluent, the message she delivered in her poem was pretty good.
What was it?
She said the theme of the poem was chair. And she said, Korea, the country Korea, is like a chair to me. At first, it was a very uncomfortable chair, but now she feels more comfortable sitting in the chair, which is Korea.
Quite poetic. I like that. I see. Well, it must have been a great event for a lot of the foreigners to remember, a memorable experience, right?
1,700. I still can't get over it. 1,700 people.
Quite a number.
Yeah.
And you know what? The test takers of the test of the proficiency of Korean, TOEIC, the number has been grown like 5-fold over the past 5 years.
Oh, so for the people who are applying to take the test, the number is increasing for that.
Yeah, 5-fold. It's amazing. And we really shouldn't forget about this very intellectual and interesting professor, Robert J. Bowser, right?
Robert Bowser, yes. He's the first professor, a foreign professor, to teach Korean here in Korea in English. I mean, through your recommendation, we had a chance to call him over to our studio and had a chance to talk to him. And he had a very interesting point. I mean, since he had an abundant experience in teaching and learning Korean himself, he shared his know-how of mastering Korean. And at the same time, he was proposing that the Korean government, the Korean academia, try to hire more people like himself, like a foreign instructor, to teach Korean in Korea, to promote and, through this growing recognition of Korean language overseas, which I thought was a great point.
Right.
But not only in our newscast, but also Korea Today. I hear that you guys dealt with this issue as well.
Yeah, we had a very special Hangul Day edition on Tuesday. Our film reporter Tommy actually went to the Gyeongbok Palace for that exhibition, and she talked to the professor that you mentioned, and she also talked about Hangulbot, and it was pretty amazing.
All right, so if you can go ahead and introduce to us what Hangulbot is.
So on the basis of phonemic and modular nature of Korean alphabet Hangul, we devised a block-shaped edutainment robot for the study of Hangul called Hangulbot.
All right, so on the table I see some blocks. Exactly how are we supposed to use them?
So this is the consonant block, 기역, 그.
Okay, 기역, good.
This is a vowel block, 이.
All right, the
And
vowel.
if you approach these two,
Ooh, all right.
and if you add the stroke,
Oh, wow.
or. So in a series, you can make like a words or sentences like
Okay, wow, that's really interesting.
Where can we find the robot?
I don't know where exactly you can find them, but it's definitely useful for first learning, those who are just starting to learn Korean. And if you talk to the people who are really interested in learning Korean, you'll find out that all of them say that it's really easy to learn how to pronounce Korean because it is very scientific. Actually, one of our co-hosts, Steve Hadley, he told us that he learned how to speak and read and pronounce Korean in 2 hours.
Oh,
Of course, I think he's a smart dude, but at the same time, that's how easy it is to learn Korean. But at the same time, if you kind of delve more into it, then of course, speaking the language properly is kind of difficult. But it just proves how scientific Hangul can be.
Yeah, logical and consistent,
Yeah.
like you said. Yeah, that's great.
And I also get a lot of emails from our viewers that they want to learn Korean. And last week when I was covering Psy's story, and a lot of fans were actually wondering what the lyrics actually mean. And that actually lead them into learning Korean as well. The K-pop wave, the whole trend itself.
And just for FYI, this Hangul robot is in the final stage of development. So it's not yet commercialized yet. But this research team at Ewha Women's University and the lead professor is only in her early 30s, so a smart professor. She and her teams are making the robots, and so we'll see that in the market maybe in a few months or
I
a few
remember
years.
her mentioning that it's not only good for learning Korean, but it's also going to be very helpful for children because it's it's like a block of woods where you can place them around, and it kind of helps you build the sense of, I guess, what do you call them, spatial abilities,
right.
and at the same time you learn Korean, so it's going to really be helpful. I think it's going to make a big hit if it comes out. Yeah, Hangul Bot.
Interesting. I mean, it's pleased to know that there has been growing recognition, like global recognition of Korean language, of course, thanks to K-pop and K-drama and so on, and especially with the elevated state of Korea in the global community. I think, it's quite promising, and hopefully next year we will celebrate it with more, significance into it, I guess.
Public holiday.
Yeah,
Of course.
hopefully. Right. Speaking artistic, and Siwon, other than the Hangul Day anniversary, I hear that you went elsewhere to cover a story.
Yes, I went to the Performing Arts Market in Seoul, or PAMS, which began back in 2005. And this year is the 8th year since the market began.
This year's Performing Arts Market in Seoul, or PAMS, kicked off a week of programs on Monday, drawing hundreds of professionals in the industry, including producers, dancers, and directors from more than 50 countries. Each year, the International Arts Market highlights a specific region with an aim to actively promote creative production and collaboration there. This year's focus is on Eastern Europe, especially 4 countries: the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia. Every evening during the 5-day event, different genres of performing arts from dance to theater will be showcased. As these performances are watched by some of the world's top-notch producers and directors at the arts market, many of the performance groups over the past 7 years have been invited to perform at stages in many different countries.
Every night during the 5-day event, there's this performing arts are staged. Every day, the 2 to 3 performances are going on. So on the first day, I went to the first day, and it was only academic symposiums were held in the afternoon, and at night the show began, and we were trying to get stories.
저희 오늘 취재차 왔는데 그 언론인 프레스킷 같은 거 있나요? 있습니다.
그러니까 이거 하나, 인터뷰 하나, 스탠드업.
6시간 일단 기다려야 되는 거야?
인터뷰는
우리 들어가시는 건 몇 시에 들어가시죠?
4시. 근데 지금 좀 늦어지고 있지만. 공연 하나 꼭 찍긴 찍어야 되는 게
적어도 이제 공연은 사고 파는 거기 때문에 15분이요?
사람들 나오고
네.
그다음에 시작할 거예요. 그럼 여기 카메라는 여기 안에 좀 찍다가 들어가서
네.
설치하시면 될 것 같아요.
그러면 전체적으로 막 늦어지는 거 아닌가요?
그렇지는 않아요.
아, 그럼 7시에 시작하기로 한 건 그대로
네,
시작되는
그대로
거죠?
시작하고, 네.
네. 행사 그림밖에 없으면
그렇게 해야지. 7시 반까지 안 나오면 10시 뉴스 마칠 거면 7시 반에 나가야 돼.
어떻게 하는 게 좋지? 이거 들어갈 퍼포밍 아트인데 그냥 잠시만요. 쇼케이스 얘기가 빠지면 사실은 핵심이 빠지는 거긴 한데 쇼케이스 그냥 뺄까? 쇼케이스 빼 그냥?
24시로 밀든가.
아 정말 이 사람들 왜 이렇게 네 지혜 선배 20, 맞추는 게 더 좋은 거죠 선배. 그쵸 20, 그럼 많으면 24시로 만드는 게 더 나으면 또 그렇게 할게요. 예 그럼 24시로 하겠습니다. 그럼 이거 찍고 하는 게 낫겠네. 사람들이 이제 공연은 서로 마음에 들면은 초대할 수도 있고 이런 거잖아요. 근데 그게 핵심인데 좀 없으면 그렇겠다 했는데.
So that day, that news came broadcast from 24 was a huge day, but it was so great to see a lot of directors and choreographers came for the day, and they said such a great opportunity to network and getting to know each other. So it's interesting.
Things happen like that all the time. You pre-plan everything before you go out, but then once you're there, everything just starts to crumble down.
Yeah, especially in shows and performances,
Yeah.
they get delayed. The audience doesn't show up.
Exactly,
People are still
exactly.
lined up, and it doesn't start until like 3-4 hours later.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we obviously have to use the time wisely, and the time budget is very important. But like you said, unexpected things always happen. You got to have plan B all the time.
And plan C. You have to have a plan C.
More plans you have, the better. And it was great that you called me earlier, so that we can that active communication between the reporter and people inside the newsroom is very important as well. I mean, so that we can actually prepare for that empty space or whatnot. And also, I mean, yeah, you have the kind of basic skeleton to work on before you actually go into the shoot. But at the same time, I think you gotta be always like, your eyes and yours would be open to some of the finer details so that you don't really stick to that original idea. Try to be more flexible. But speaking of flexibility, I mean, Jisun, you had a similar experience as in where you expected something, but it turned out to be something else.
Yeah, I went to an event hosted by the German embassy.
Each year on October 3rd, Koreans celebrate National Foundation Day, but October 3rd is also a significant date in Germany when the country celebrates the Day of German Unity in commemoration of the reunification in 1990. Here in Seoul, hundreds of Germans gathered at the German embassy on Tuesday evening to commemorate that historic day at a reception hosted by the recently posted German envoy to Korea, Rolf Maffei. Former German President Christian Wolff was also present at the event, with Korea's unification minister Yoo Woo-ik delivering a congratulatory message.
And we were planning to make it into a package of the event, but when I actually went there, it was actually a very small venue, and not
How
exactly.
small was it?
It was actually held at the residence of the German ambassador there, so it was a small, packed place with a lot of people involved, and that first of all, it doesn't give enough space for the photographer to shoot the footages, like get around or get by, or even like have an interview. So actually, like all circumstances were pretty much against of me making a package for the newscast. we finally decided to make it into a B-roll with the footages, and I actually did get the sound bites, but I think like at the end of the day, I think we made a very an efficient decision.
Yeah, and once again, she called me to confirm, and it was great as well. And fortunately, we had enough stories to run that day, so that went well, actually. But so from what I hear, it sounded like more of a social gathering, an event. Did you get to meet anyone interesting?
Actually, a lot of people. It was actually a reception to commemorate the Day of Unity in Germany that was that took place back in 1990, and around like 600 to 700 people showed up, and a lot of them ambassadors, generals, and a lot of diplomats as well as celebrities. And I got to meet the former German president, Christian Wolff, as well as our unification minister, Yu Wei. So I think it was a great opportunity, but aside reporting the story.
Yeah, great. It was a priceless experience. And of course, it must have mean a great deal for the Germans as well, but hopefully we can have our own party of our own, own unification at a sooner date. But thank you very much, guys, for another great week. The weather is getting chillier by the day. Hopefully we'll pull out our coats and keep ourselves warm so we won't catch colds.
Because we can't not lose our voice. No.
Very important.
Hiking to catch the autumn foliage, in Seorak Mountain or Bukhansan, mountains nearby.
She's the sporty one.
She is. Well, have a great weekend, guys. It's great talking to you.
See you next time.
See you next week.
Yeah. Well, as widely expected, Korea cut its interest rate for the second time this year to prop up an economy hit hard by plunging exports and tepid domestic demand. Our economics correspondent Hwang Sung-hee files us this report from Bank of Korea.
The Bank of Korea has cut the nation's key interest rate for the second time this year. Following a monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday, the central bank slashed the nation's borrowing costs by 1/4 percentage point to 2.75%. The reason is simple: to stimulate the sluggish domestic economy that's expected to grow at the slowest pace since 2008. The country has been seeing slumping exports and weakening domestic demand, while consumer price growth has remained subdued. Consumer prices rose 2% last month from a year earlier, but this is still at the bottom of the bank's inflation target band of 2 to 4%. The central bank cut the nation's interest rate for the first time in 13 months in July and has held off on further stimulus measures until now, saying that it wants to wait and see the effects of its previous cut and also monitor the changes in the global economy.
방금 전에 여기 공보관님 거랑 명함을 교환했는데 제가 급하게 짐이 너무 많아가지고 이제 바로 드리려고 이제 목걸이를 착용했어요. 이제 프레스하고 명함하고 같이.
아마 버스 섹션이라고 해서 지역